City Matters.
This is Influential Origins with Alan Mindel, and today I have a phenomenal guest that I am so honored to have today, Mr. Simon Deng. Simon, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Alan, for having me here today.
Simon, tell me about life near the White Nile in South Sudan when you first were growing up. Tell me about the community you were born into and the people you were born into.
I was born in Shilluk community. I'm a Shilluk by tribes. When we talk about the White Niles, the Shilluks are staying across the Niles, start most all the way to close to the northern Sudan, which is to the city of Kosti. And you will find the Shilluks in two sides, western side and eastern side of the Niles. We grow up in a village of Tonga, a peaceful village. When we grown up, learn how to speak as kids, the first message that we were being told by our parents, when you see the Arab coming, you have to run, and you have to run for your life. As a kid, of course, you have to listen to advice of the parents. And then from childhood until we come to grown up a little bit, all we know is every year in, year out, is constantly the Arab will come and run our village. People will run for their life. People will come back the following days to see after the Arab left, the houses are burned to ashes. The easy part of maintaining our life in the same place in those villages, because it's not difficult to build a hut.
Right.
All we use is the grass and the mud, and you build the house. It is not a concrete house, but these are the life that we live in the line of the Nile. It was beautiful in a sense that this is what we know.
Right.
And it's horrible when the Arab will come, especially for us as kids. We didn't know what is wrong with us, why we're being singled out, because we didn't know that there are other people exist elsewhere, because this is we child. And that is the horror of being in the villages in southern Sudan.
And so the Shilluk became basically your religion was Christian. You had farming and you had, a beautiful natural place. There were animals everywhere. It was the real, safari type of world with it. But the safety was in the village itself. Talk to me about, as a child, what happened during those raids when they would come from the north.
Let me take you back about the Shilluk itself. In Sudan, there used to be kingdoms.
Yeah.
We have a kingdom of Nuba, a kingdom of Funj, kingdom ofFor, and even kingdom of Zande. On the top of it, the Shilluk kingdoms. All the kingdom that I just mentioned, all of them perished because their kingdom was being destroyed on the policy of Islamizations. The only kingdom which exists up to today in Sudan and southern Sudan, now because Sudan is two Sudan at this moment we're speaking, is the Shilluk kingdom. The reasons why the Shilluk kingdom remain as up to today, simply because they stood up to defend themselves, not to be converted to Islam, to a point where the entire populations, I think according to the historian, they used to say Shilluk used to be about 2.5 million. And then when the Arab got tired of his slaughtering, fighting the Shilluk for years and decades, and then to a point where that we have kings, about 3 kings. 2 was martyrs, and the last one was taken into exile and was converted to Islam and was sent back so that he will go and convert his own people. But unfortunately, when he was captured, of course, the Shilluk kingdom cannot stay without kings.
Right.
So they replaced him. So that king, when he came, he could not be restored back as a king. We're talking about King Abdul Fadil, and they give him the name Abdul Fadil, but the original name, King Kur, and then become Kur Abdul Fadil. So when it comes to our life in that place, we are a very peaceful society, especially the Shilluk kingdoms. The only horror and the only difficulties they went through, it is when they was fighting or resisting by refusing the convertments. After the king of the 4 was being converted, Nuba was being converted, Funy was being converted, and the only kingdom which was not converted is the Shilluk kingdom until today. And we still maintain our religion as Christians.
When people came to your village, you had to run for your life. Talk to me about what happened as a child to your villages, how people would come to your village, and how you survived it, and who didn't.
Sometimes it is not easy to tell exactly what happened, because sometimes the army will come. It is not just people, it is army, Sudanese army.
Right.
They will come with their trucks, and usually along the line, the word will go out to people ahead that to let them know that there is army coming. They already passed that village and they already passed that village. If they is not coming in a surprise. And I will never forget a day when we were after the kettles. We were young kids.
Right.
And because usually in the village, the most grown up a little bit, they're always after the cows, but the younger one will be after the goats and so on.
Right.
And then I and my other Shilluk boys from the same village,
right.
3 of us were after. And then when we hear the guns, we realized that the trucks were already close to us.
Right.
And they're shooting. We run. Of course, we are not now. We don't care about the animals. Now we care about our life. We run in where that 2 of my friends were shot. One couldn't make it, and now I was the only one running, without knowing where am I running into the bush.
Right.
Thank God that there was people who already they ran before me without knowing. And I was running, passing by. They have to run and capture me to calm me down that they are not behind you. But for me, I just have to run because assuming that I will be falling now, I will fall to see myself falling like the others were. So our life...
Because your friends were just shot and killed.
Yeah, one died, one made it.
Yeah.
Even because to me, I thought that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. And thank God that if it was not those people who captured me when I was passing them, probably I would have gone to the bush where probably I would not even, because I'm not thinking of stopping.
Right.
I'm not thinking of stopping.
And when you're in the bush, it's not like people thinking about nature here. The animals there were dangerous. They could kill you.
The bush is owned by animals, not owned by the peoples.
Yeah.
You have all lions, tigers, hyenas, but the most important, hyenas and tigers and lions. Leave out the snakes by itself. Right. So the life itself in Southern Sudan during that time, it is peaceful when you are in the village, but when the attack comes, now it is not because of you're afraid of the guns, but you are afraid of where you're running.
Yeah.
I know people, especially elders, many of them who would sometimes run and they will not come back.
Right.
Until the dry season, people have to go and look for their bones.
Right.
I know the elders, when the government will come and burn the houses down, people that I knew in the village, elders, people that I used to talk to them, because as a kid, sometimes you find a peaceful when you talk to a grown-up person,
Right.
especially a person who is blind.
Right.
I know the people who was born alive in my village.
Because the Sudanese army and the militias, when they got to the village, if they didn't shoot you, they would burn you alive in the huts.
In southern Sudan at that time, we didn't know that it's a militia, but all of them are Sudanese armed with guns and trucks.
Right. And it was routine for them.
Oh yes. Usually the safe times for us, it is when it is in the rain seasons.
Yeah.
But in the rain seasons, instead of them leaving the villages in peace, they will use the Niles, and they will come with the steamers. In other words, the life in southern Sudan then, it was a living hell.
Because you never know when your village would be raided.
Not at all.
You never knew when someone would be burned alive.
Whether it is rainy seasons or dry seasons.
And you never knew when you ran into the bush because you were being shot at, if you would survive the bush, because that was dangerous on its own.
And it is a routine to every villages. It is a matter of how many people couldn't made it back after they ran into the bush. And that's why I said that the only descriptions to the life at that time is a living hell.
In addition to what they did to the men, can you tell me what they did to the women?
You know, the most vulnerable persons, when they captured them, is the women. Because for them, it is a luxury. For them a luxury to have fun with women.
Right.
When I talk about fun, we're not talking about the real fun where people are loving and enjoying.
Right.
We're talking about fun when people are being raped, when young girls are being raped. In other words, and this is the very difficult part, when usually we talk about forgive and forget.
Right.
For some of us who has witnessed things that happen to us, to our relative, to ourselves, you will find it difficult. How can you forget and how can you forgive?
Because it was routine for these women to be raped.
Because in the eyes of them, in the eyes of those Arabs at that times, and I have to say it as it is, they are not human beings. They are a piece of toy.
That's what they considered.
Consider.
The
Shilluk women. African woman.
Yeah.
It's a toy where you have to enjoy by having fun.
All right. Their fun.
Yes.
But not only did they rape these women, but I know from some of your history, there were women that suffered even worse fates. You know, there was a story of a pregnant woman you once told.
You know, when they rape women and leaving them intact, leaving them without going beyond that.
Meaning murdering them after.
That's a blessing.
Right.
But sometimes, and this is where we talk about evils, most people end up doing something that the evil cannot do. When you rape a person, instead of leaving her to go, murder her, cut her. Why? If it is for them to enjoy I cannot answer that question. But this is what my people went through. This is what we went through. And some of us are lucky, and usually I call myself as a lucky victims. Because I never thought one day I will be here talking to a person like you. I never thought I will come out into the world where I will be seen as a human being.
Because you were not considered a human.
I was not a human being.
Right.
Even though I was a human being, but I was not being considered as a human being. In other words, I know what evil can do to another person.
Because from the age of a child, you saw people burned alive in huts. You saw people shot indiscriminately just for being in your village, tending to their animals. You saw people sent out to the wild, to the bush, where they could not survive it. And no one cared at that time.
You know, we didn't know that there is other peoples on the other side of the world. Especially we as kids. Maybe our fathers know that there are other peoples exist on the other side. We didn't know that there is too much atrocity being committed in other places beside our places as a child. And even you have to, as a child, you assume that this is what God has created you to go through. Because we didn't know that there is a beautiful place on the other side of the world. And becoming to realize now, and then this is where people like us have to look into the eyes of the other human being. Why? What have we done? We, the people of Southern Sudan, we did nothing wrong to anyone. We, the Shilluks, in the Shilluk kingdoms, the most peaceful kingdoms on earth, we never harm anybody. The kingdoms of Shilluk is a model of peace. In other words, a king itself look at every human being as the children of the kingdoms. Sometimes, based on our culture, if somebody did something wrong and go to the Shilluk kingdoms, that person is being protected and being saved. But what was done to us by the Sudanese army, it is an evil. I cannot be described by any word that I can say.
Now, when this was happening, so people get a scope of it, you know, you didn't know what else was happening in the world. But within just your own world in Sudan, over time, how many people had been murdered by the North? How many peaceful Christians and Shilluk and different people of Southern Sudan, of different groups, how many to date do we believe have been annihilated?
And this is where some of us, the black Africans in Sudan, become to questioning the world at large. Why nobody were there for us? Why nobody didn't care about us? But most important, why the world let the government of Sudan did what they did on the people of Southern Sudan. When we talk about how many people was murdered, the government of Southern Sudan slaughtered 4 million plus. 4 million black African plus in that continent of Africa. And enslaved hundreds of thousands Southern Sudanese Christians to a point where the world has denounced slavery as an evil. But guess what? Slavery is still and was still in Sudan. And I am here talking to you as a lucky victims, a living proof of the slavery which was still in Sudan until the time of independence less than 11 years ago.
And in parts of the world today, still to this day, and we're going to talk about your experience in slavery, there are still black slaves being held, Christian slaves, that as we stand here in 2026, that are slaves today in the world.
More than that, and let me speak on Africa with authority. We didn't know that slavery exists in the part of the world. Especially we, the victims of the slavery, we never thought there were even a slavery exists on any other part of the world until we grown up. But growing up, even speaking to you here, there was 2 countries in the continent of Africa which was still maintaining slavery until today. Those countries is a country of Sudan and a country of Mauritania. Surprise, surprise. How did the world, including the United Do-Nothing Nations, with their principles, declarations of Universal Declaration to denounce on a human right, in their document, slavery is one of the things that should not be tolerated. But how can you have a member state sitting, sharing the same table with you here in New York, here in Geneva, independent country that is still own people as a slave, a country of Mauritania and a country of Sudan. Until some of us, when we came here, we have to join hands with members of community of Mauritania to denounce and lobbying. Surprise, the government of Mauritania went and denounced and declared outlawing the slavery for the 3rd time. Question is, if you denounce it the first time, you denounce it in second time, are you denouncing it the 3rd times? How many times that you have to denounce that?
Right. How many times you have to say you're not going to kill people and you end up killing 4 million people and the world says almost nothing about it over time.
And that happened in Sudan.
Right. You told me a story about a train car that was documented. Tell me about what happened to the people that went into the cars, because obviously you're in a Holocaust center. We're familiar with being put in cattle cars.
And this is where, and we're talking about in 1980s.
Yeah.
Just recently, when the government of Sudan was going so ruthlessly, slaughtering Southern Sudanese, a group of militia in Western Sudan on the border of Southern Sudan, they went and gathered all the refugees, Southern Sudanese, parked them in all the trains that's being told that we are taking you to the north. These are the people who came walking because their villages burned down.
Right. Just like your village was burned down.
Their villages burned down. And I come from Upper Niles in Southern Sudan, but those people, they come from Baragazal, which is on the border of Western Sudan. And usually there was only one train which goes to Western Sudan and goes across close to those villages, and we're talking about the majority of them happen to be a community of Denka in that part of Sudan. Those trains were packed with 20,000 women and children, where they're being promised that they're being taken to the north. And then the door was closed on them, and they was burned into those trucks.
Burned alive.
Burned alive. Women and children.
20,000
20,000.
And the world said nothing.
And the world said nothing. And then sometimes there are some people with humanity. And then there is two gentlemen happen to be professors in Khartoum University, one of the elite university in Sudan, or one of the best university in Africa. They couldn't take it. And these are Muslims, they're not northerners. Dr. Baldo and Dr. Ushari. They went and documented the atrocity, which become known in Sudan, in Arabic, massacre of the end, the slaughter of the end. The end is the place. Those two gentlemen, they have to lose their job, they have to end up in prisons, and instead of for the government to kill them, they have to kick them out from the country. And we talk about in 80s here. So being here in Holocaust Center, these are the things that we have to let everybody knows. Because
these things happen. And these two righteous said something.
This is the right place.
Right.
And for me, I have to be honored to be speaking here and to tell the history of my peoples, because they are not going to be here and they will not get a chance to be here.
We don't want them to be forgotten.
When we talk about and seeing what happens in the images that I've seen, I have seen that when I went to Yad Vashem in Israel, I see myself in the image.
Let's pick up from this in our next segment. We're going to talk about not just the murders, but the slavery and your story of slavery. We'll be right back.